Welcome to the Forum for the State House 5th District primary election. Today is July 9th, 2024. This forum features candidates who filed for the August primary. Only one will be elected to serve a 2-year term. The sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. My name is Terrye Benjamin, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of this district. Tonight, the Democratic candidates are Crystal Bailey, Regina Weiss. The Republican candidate is Will Sears. Also on the ballot, but not here tonight, is Eric Love and Kevin Keys III. Mr. Love has sent a statement which I will read before the opening statements. Mr. Keys has not provided us with a statement in time to be read here today. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, national, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our community strong. As a member of the League of Women Voters, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role, such as this one, that has great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I encourage you to pick up some of the League of Women Voters information available here tonight or visit our website at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. Views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates only, and we, the sponsors, take no responsibility. Candidates must answer questions with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. Also, candidates must not disparage other candidates, whether the candidates are present or absent. Questions are asked to all candidates and do not single out any one candidate. All questions are submitted by the audience and screened for duplication, redundancy, and appropriateness. Our screeners tonight are Maxine Monshine, Linda Fiscus. Our question gatherers, or pagers, are circulating in the audience with paper and pencil for you to write down your questions. Our question gatherers today are Deborah Flegel and Mike Allen. Our timekeeper is Christine Allen. The format for our forum is as follows. All candidates are given 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order. Candidates have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation, unless extended by the moderator. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. As we begin the forum, we ask our audience to turn off your cell phones, please remain silent, and hold your applause until the end of the forum. We begin our forum with an opening statement sent by Eric Love. Dear League of Women Voters and fellow candidates, I want to extend my sincerest apologies for my absence from today's forum. Unforeseen circumstances prevent me from attending, and for that I am truly sorry. To the League of Women Voters, I appreciate the opportunity to provide for candidates. I appreciate the opportunity you provide for candidates to share their platforms and engage in meaningful discussions. Your organization plays a vital role in promoting civic engagement and voter education, and I value your work immensely. To the voters, I thank you for taking the time to attend the forum and engage in the political process. Your dedication to staying informed and involved drives our democracy forward, and I appreciate your commitment. Although I can't be here in person, I invite you to learn more about my vision and values on my website at ericlovemichigan.com. Follow my campaign on social media and reach out to me directly to discuss the issues that matter to you most. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to earning your vote. Sincerely, Eric Love, Michigan State Representative Candidate, District 5. And now for our candidates' presence. Ms. Bailey, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you, the League of Women Voters, for the opportunity to be here. I am Crystal Bailey, your candidate for the new State House District map. I am proud to represent all of Oak Park, except Precinct 9, Royal Oak Township, and Northwest Detroit, from Southfield Freeway to Livernois, 6, 7, and 8 Mile, with the southern deviation between Greenfield and Hubble, just at Puritan. And I am proud. I am born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, attending high school at Henry Ford High. I moved to Oak Park, graduated from Oak Park High in 2001. I am 41 years old. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I was elected to Oak Park School Board in 2018, and I served on the school board at the worst time of our lives, which was a global pandemic. And I know that we need to educate the whole child. And I am running for state representative in District 5 for mental health, eradication of gun violence, and the school to prison pipeline. Thank you.
Ms. Weiss.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this forum, either in person or virtually. I am Regina Weiss. I'm a current state representative running for my third term in the State House. I am a former Detroit Public Schools teacher and also a former Oak Park City Council member. I first ran and continue to run to make sure that we are investing properly in our K-12, public K-12 system in the state, to make sure we're supporting our schools, are supporting kids across the state, that we're standing up for working families and working people in the state, and that we're doing everything that we can to invest back into the local community. I've led on all three of those issues since serving the legislature. I was the lead sponsor of repealing anti-worker legislation, including restoring collective bargaining rights for teachers and repealing Michigan's right to work law. I also brought back over $94 million to the city of Detroit to help support literacy in the Detroit Public Schools district. I currently chair our K-12 budget on education and have helped deliver historic investments to our K-12 system through my leadership. I hope to be able to continue this work moving forward, and I hope to have everyone's support on August 6th. Thank you.
Mr. Sears.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I thank the League of Women Voters for this privilege of presenting these candidates for office and this opportunity to speak to my community. I've been born and raised in Detroit. I have lived all of my life in Detroit or Southfield or Oak Park. And each time I've lived there, I've lived under Democrat guidance. I decided that since I was unhappy with the direction that the Democrat Party in general takes, and many Democrat officials specifically, that I would take the opportunity to put forth my positions. I hope to impress my community with a different perspective, keeping costs down, keeping crime down and limiting crime, and limiting government overall.
Thank you. And now for our first question. Start with Ms. Weiss. What is your vision for the Michigan of the future?
Thank you. So to me, there are very many important things that we need to think about when we are thinking about what the future of our state should look like. And I am thinking about that future every day. I have two twin boys, 20-month-old toddler boys, and I think about them every time I'm making decisions as an elected official about what our future should look like in this state as I continue to raise my boys here in Southeast Michigan. And the thing that I think is the most important and critical thing that we need to address in our state and make sure that we are doing right by is doing right by our kids. And that means making sure that we are investing properly in public education in the state, that we are supporting our public schools, that we are increasing recruitment and retention for teachers, and that we're also doing more to invest in childcare and other supportive services for families. We also need to make sure that we are increasing support for local communities so that we can make critical investments to improve our water safety and affordability, quality, energy affordability, to make it easier for people to live, work, and thrive in Michigan.
Thank you. Mr. Sears?
I would like to see Michigan be a state where the income taxes and the sales taxes are nominal, where the government oversight is nominal, where the citizens have, the parents have the right to oversee their children's care, and that outsiders cannot hide their activities with parents, from parents, as they engage with their children. I would like to see us be a nation, a state where government is minimal, taxes are minimal, and the impact on the people is minimal. I guess that about sums it up.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Ms. Bailey?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer the question. And I would like to see for Michigan a safe community, a safe Michigan. I like to see more funds allocated towards mental health and eradication of gun violence and the school to prison pipeline. I like to see the fact that the state of Michigan is in a mental health crisis. I'd like to see us reallocate funds. The Department of Health and Human Services has a budget of $37.7 billion, and they allocate 1% towards state psychiatric and mental health services. I'd like to see more money going towards preventative measures, programming for mental health. I like to see eradication of gun violence. I like to see laws that hold gun manufacturers accountable for making these Glocks so easily to use, and to be able to change them from just a handgun to an automatic rifle. I like to create laws that hold the gun manufacturer accountable, which makes our community, our state, a safer place to live. Thank you.
Ms. Bailey. Who starts next? Mr. Sears. You have the first answer. What is your stance on protecting the environment and addressing climate change?
I believe that the climate is not affected greatly by what men are doing on Earth. I believe there are two trains of thought, and one train is that there was a group of scientists who wanted to impose their positions on all the world, and they have admitted that their statements about climate change were false. I believe that ball in the sky, that yellow star we call the sun, has more effect on climate than anything men on Earth are doing. So I do believe, however, that we on Earth can take care of our climate by limiting the industrial waste, that we can control pollution perhaps better than we can in this state. The climate, however, is not something that we are bound by.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Ms. Bailey, what is your stance on protecting the environment and addressing climate change?
Well, I think it starts with us. I think it starts with, first of all, taking that first step to recycle. I mean, I think that would help tremendously if just each one of us in our community just take the initiative to recycle. I think that would combat the issues that we have with climate change. I think it starts there, locally. Thank you for the opportunity to answer the question.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. There is a lot that we need to do and continue to do to address this climate crisis that we have. The fact that we're seeing hurricanes earlier than ever right now happening is indicative of climate change. The fact that we are having once in 500 years flooding events every few years is indicative of climate change and the effects that it's happening on our local community here in Michigan and on our infrastructure. I was proud to co-sponsor and vote for legislation to Clean Energy and Jobs Act to speed up our adoption of renewable energy in the state to get to net zero more quickly in Michigan, and also to make sure that we are transitioning our workforce to be able to meet these clean energy jobs and be trained for high-paying, good quality clean energy jobs of the future. I want to make sure, again, Michigan is a place that people want to come to and live in the future, and one way that we do that is making sure that our infrastructure is resilient to a lot of the things that we can no longer control that are happening right now due to climate change, and I hope to be able to continue that work moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss. Ms. Bailey, this is another question on the environment. What are your accomplishments in the area of climate change and protecting our environment?
Well, that's a good question. My accomplishments, I recycle. I definitely recycle. I encourage my nieces and nephews, my daughter, to do the same. I can say that's my first step of accomplishment. I think it's a really big one. I think that is one that we can all just take that very small step to do, and we neglect to do it, just rinsing out our products and throwing away. It's just as simple as that. I mean, if we all just took that initiative to do it ourselves, I think we would see this. I know we would see the change, and it would be a drastic change. So that is my success, I would say, and adding value to the climate. Thank you.
Ms. Weiss, same question concerning the environment and climate change. What are your accomplishments in these areas?
Absolutely. As I already said, I co-sponsored and supported and voted for and helped pass the Clean Energy and Jobs Act to speed up our climate goals here in Michigan and to make sure that we're transitioning our workforce to meet those needs. I also serve on the Appropriations Subcommittee for Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, and on that committee have helped spearhead and push for enhanced appropriations and support for local communities to be able to meet infrastructure needs for climate change, to reduce flooding when we have these large rain events, and also to make sure that our water is affordable and that our water is clean and accessible for everyone in the state of Michigan. I also helped have continued to co-sponsor other legislation to improve the environment, including polluter pay, and also expanding our bottle bill to increase the success that we've had for our bottle bill legislation here in Michigan and encouraging folks to recycle in the state.
Thank you. Mr. Sears?
I believe if we could research over the centuries what the temperature has been, that it has changed from century to century, even not being in an industrial time. I don't believe that 0.5% of increase in temperature over the next 100 years is a catastrophe. I believe that's the estimate as what the temperature will change over the next 100 years. So I do nothing with regard to climate change. I don't believe that there's evidence that men on Earth are doing anything sufficient to change the climate of the Earth.
Next question. Ms. Weiss, you're going to be first. Do you feel taxes are too high for seniors on fixed incomes, and how would you help them?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I am the most proud of that we accomplished with a Democratic trifecta for the first time in over 40 years was repealing the retirement tax or the pension tax. It's one of the very first bills that we passed in the 102nd legislature, and it was one of my priorities and one of the reasons that I ran. Under the Snyder administration, corporate taxes were slashed and taxes on seniors were increased, seniors living on a fixed income, by taxing their pensions. That was money that was guaranteed, that was supposed to be available for seniors, that they budgeted for their whole lives and that they planned for. And to have that tax put on them when they didn't plan for it was deeply unfair and inappropriate. So I'm incredibly proud that that was one of the first pieces of legislation that we passed. I'm also supportive of other tax policy that we are continuing to work on to make sure that we are ensuring that corporations and the ultra wealthy pay their fair share, and that we reduce taxes on folks like seniors and others who live on a fixed income, so that we can increase revenue in our state and also have a more tax fair structure in our state.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, do you feel taxes are too high for seniors on fixed incomes, and how would you help them?
I believe that we should help seniors to participate in the community. I believe we can encourage business neighbors to assist seniors who are being financially challenged in their communities. I don't believe that at this point in time we can go into the state treasury and take additional money from working people to support the seniors. But I believe there's enough money in the community and enough people who are gratuitous enough so that seniors that are being challenged can be helped without putting additional burden on others by increasing their taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Ms. Bailey, do you feel taxes are too high for seniors on fixed incomes, and how would you help them?
Absolutely. I do believe taxes are too high for seniors on a fixed income. And I know that taxes are too high where I live. I live in Oak Park, East Oak Park, and I bought my home in 2019. And that following year, my taxes uncapped, and it was ridiculous. I couldn't afford myself. So it was it's harder to afford to live in the city of Oak Park. We had a tax increase in the city of Oak Park for parks and recs, which that made it even higher. My taxes currently are $7,000. People who live in my community, taxes are $1,200, $1,500. They've been living there quite some time. But 2020, I have a great interest rate, but I pay more in taxes than I do in my principal. So, and I'm a 41-year-old woman, so imagine a senior citizen trying to afford what I'm paying in just taxes alone. So, thank you for the question.
Next question, Mr. Sears. How would you work to help make sure to keep a balanced budget? How would you work to keep a balanced budget for the state?
I do believe a balanced budget is essential. I do believe that there is waste in government. The first thing we might consider is cutting every department a certain percentage, cutting their budget a certain percentage across the board to make sure that we maintain a balanced budget. That perhaps is something that will work. I do believe with the waste that every large government, as we have, has, that there are certain areas that we can eliminate altogether. Can't be specific, I don't know enough about that yet, but a across-the-board decrease is certainly a start, and that would, I believe, balance the budget.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey, how would you work to keep a balanced budget for the state?
I would start with the departments, different departments, and first and foremost, the Department of Health and Human Services. I would start there, and I know when I was vice president of the Oak Park School Board, we did a zero-based budget for our school board, and I'm not so certain that the Department of Health and Human Services does not need to go that route. So I would start with the departments.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss, how would you keep a balanced budget?
Absolutely. I currently serve on the Committee on Appropriations in the State House. I have served the entire time that I've been in the House on the Committee of Appropriations. I chair the School Aid Subcommittee and the Department of Education Subcommittee on Appropriations. I'm vice chair of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Appropriations, and I also serve on EGLE and higher ed and community colleges as well. And so appropriations in the budget is very central to the work that I do currently for the State House. So I have been doing work to keep the balanced budget. We have passed balanced budgets in the entire time that I have served in my capacity. And I will say that one of the things that I'm very focused on, particularly with the education budget, is making sure that as we are winding down the COVID dollars and we don't have as much federal money coming in, that we're making sure that we're being strategic about how we're spending those dollars and not spending it on necessarily new programming, but making sure that we're continuing to make investments in areas that we've already committed to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves, knowing that we don't necessarily have all of the revenue to do everything that we would like to do currently.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Bailey, you're first. What is your position on a woman's right to choose?
I believe a woman has the right to choose, should have the right to choose. It is not something that I believe politicians to make the decisions for us. I believe that is a personal, at-home discussion privately between the doctor and herself. And she has the right to choose. Strongly feel that.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss.
Absolutely. I fully support access to all reproductive health care, including abortion services. And as a member of the Progressive Women's Caucus in the legislature, I was the lead sponsor on legislation to help codify some of the ballot initiative that we passed here in Michigan for Reproductive for All, and also repealing Michigan's antiquated 1931 abortion ban. My bill in that package would have allowed for Medicaid dollars to be used for abortion services. Unfortunately, that bill, we were not able to get that across the finish line, but I'm still working with the Progressive Women's Caucus to hopefully bring that back up. But was a co-sponsor on also all the other legislation to make sure that we are protecting and enshrining access to all reproductive health care here in Michigan, particularly with a lot of the things that have been happening that are pretty frightening at the federal level that are clearly aimed at limiting access to reproductive health care and limiting the rights of women in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, what is your position on a woman's right to choose?
I like the idea that all of us have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The question is, the thing that's in the womb, when is it human? Well, if you don't know when it's human, I don't believe even the woman who has the womb in her has the right to destroy something that is not her. Let's face it, sometimes it's a male in the womb. That wouldn't be the woman's body. Sometimes it's a female that has a different blood type than the woman. So we have laws in America. You shall not murder. You shall not kill. And if the thing in the womb is human, then the woman has no right to kill it. I have to say that we had a recent law passed, and that law has settled the issue, and the mother can do what she wants in the womb at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Sears.
I have no intentions of changing that.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Ms. Weiss, you have the next question. What steps will you take to work across the aisle in the House?
Thank you. I have served in both the minority and I have served in the majority in the State House. And so my first term, we had a narrow minority in the State House. The Republicans were in control of the State House as well as the State Senate. Obviously, we have a Democratic governor. And I worked in my first term across the aisle, particularly again through the budget process, working with my chair in the House and also working with the chair in the Senate to make sure that we were making critical investments in education. And then even though I don't necessarily agree with a lot of my counterparts on the other side of the aisle about many issues, we were able to find a lot of common ground and make sure that we were making really critical and important investments. And I'm really proud of the 2 budgets that we passed in my first 2 years in the State House that were passed under Republican control. Since serving in the minority, or serving the majority rather, I've also worked to reach across the aisle to my Republican counterparts so that they had a similar experience to what I had when I was serving in the minority, because I believe that we do better when we work together. Despite our differences, everyone runs for office to serve, and I believe in respecting that and honoring that.
Thank you. Mr. Sears,
May I have that question once more?
what steps would you take to work across the aisle in the House?
My positions, almost 100% of them, are 180 degrees opposite of what Democrats position themselves as. I don't see where there's much opportunity to work across the aisle. Typically, when Republicans reach across to Democrats, Republicans come up short. That's my position. So I would rather have stalemate than reach across the aisle. I believe the direction that the other party is going is not the right direction, and the best we can do is stop moving in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Ms. Bailey.
Thank you for the question. I would, constituent services, I would take these issues that I have, I would work with the constituents across the aisles, because these issues are issues for everyone. Mental health, eradication of gun violence, and the school to prison pipeline affects us all. The District 5 is a 75% black district since the redistricting. And I like to get to Lansing to push these issues to the front of the conversation and be proactive instead of reactive. And that's what I feel that we're getting from our current legislation. It's just reactionary, where we need leaders such as myself, Crystal Bailey, to get to Lansing, work together to push these issues to the front of the conversations, because the state of Michigan is in a mental health crisis. The state of Michigan and the U.S. General said we're in a public health crisis because of the gun violence. Something needs to be done. We need to change the conversation, and I'm Crystal Bailey. That's my thoughts.
You're welcome. Mr. Sears, you have this question first. What is your view on gun control and on Michigan's current laws?
I believe Michigan's current laws on gun control are correct. I believe that people who are law-abiding should have a right to own a gun and munitions. And in fact, I believe that the state has no right to require a law-abiding citizen to register their gun. That makes it easy for the state, when they don't like a particular person, to know what weapons the person has. So I believe with the crime that we're seeing, that we should make the penalties greater on the criminal. Guns don't shoot people, but people do. And the penalties for murder, whether it's a gun or a car, should be greater than what we have.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Ms. Bailey, what is your view on gun control and Michigan's current laws?
I think our current laws, the red flag law, safe storage, I believe they are helpful. I mean, we haven't had a gun law and new gun law in over 40 years, nearly 40 years. So I think that they're great, but they can't do much of anything if we don't educate the residents of our community about these laws. Yeah, we put these laws in place, but if we're not getting the laws and the information to the residents, it would harm them. Like I said, District 5 is a 75% black voting age population, and that safe storage law would affect that community very highly because they don't know about safe storage. Most of them don't know about safe storage laws. Not being educated, we have to educate about safe storage. We have to educate about red flag law, because if they don't know, it would affect them, and it's very important. It's Crystal Bailey. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss.
Thank you. I'm proud to serve on the Firearm Safety and Gun Violence Prevention Caucus in the legislature, and I'm proud to have co-sponsored and helped pass and get across the finish line legislation to make it so that we have universal background checks in this state, to make it so that we have extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws, and also safe storage. Gun violence is the leading cause of death among children in this state, the leading cause of death among children in this country. And that is completely unacceptable, and that is completely preventable. And anyone who says otherwise is not doing enough. And so I feel very strongly about this issue. I've been working on this issue since before I was elected. As a mom, as a teacher, I've never been in a classroom where I haven't thought about what I would do if the unthinkable happened. And so we need to do more to make sure that we are doing more to protect our families, protect kids, and educate folks about these laws. We actually just passed through legislation that would, through our committee, to make sure that families would get information sent home to them at school and through their school about the new laws that have just passed around safe storage.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey, you have the next question. What should Michigan do to improve student achievement?
Oh, that's a great question. Student achievement, we need to center it around absenteeism. We need the child in school before we can do anything. If the child isn't in school, we cannot educate them. We have to tackle absenteeism. Why are the children absent from home? We have to find out why, get to the root of the issue. Like on the school board, we know our absenteeism was through the roof. So we got involved with the parents. Getting involved with the parents, having parent groups, PTAs, finding out how can we help the parents to get the child to school. It's all centered around absenteeism, and we have to keep the focus there. We have to get the child into school. Mental health is we have to have social workers at schools to help these kids. Educating the whole child is very important because these kids are dealing with all kinds of issues before they even get into the schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss, what should Michigan do to improve student achievement?
This is a question I ask myself every day because we're not doing enough. And as chair on the subcommittee on appropriations for school aid, I'm incredibly proud of a lot of the investments, particularly historic investments that we've made to increase equity in this state, to make sure that we're putting more money into special education, fully funding the Special Education Foundation allowance for the first time in Michigan's history, making sure that we're putting more money into at-risk funding for students who are in poverty, making sure that we're putting more money into English language learners to support those learners as well. And equity is an important piece. Equity is central to making sure that we are meeting the need of every student in the state, but it's not enough. We also need to make sure that we are adequately funding our public schools in Michigan, and the fact of the matter is that we are not. And that is a revenue issue, and it's an issue that we need to be serious about addressing. It's an issue that I'm working with my colleagues and with external stakeholders and figuring out how do we move forward to make sure that we are fully funding and equitably funding our schools so that every student, every child in this state has the resources that they need to be successful.
Thank you. Mr. Sears.
I believe the state could have a regulation that they must speak with parents. Parents must be available at the beginning of each semester or each term so that the parent understands that they have to follow up with their student, with their child, with proper food in the morning, with proper sleep at night. Make sure that they do their studies. The burden should be on the parent, and the school system should not continue to pass children along that are substandard, that have not met the level that they should be at. I believe if that were done, then parents would be more serious if a student did not pass, to make sure that they follow up with their student to make sure their student catches up. If the student falls behind, they'll be behind for life.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss, you have the next question. Do you believe every Michigan citizen should have easy access to voting?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of a lot of the work that we've done here in Michigan to expand voting rights in the state of Michigan. Now, everyone in the state, we have no reason absentee voting, we have early voting, we have same-day voter registration in the state. It is easier than ever to vote in Michigan, and I believe that that is a good thing. We know that we have secure elections in Michigan. We have worked to protect our elections and our election integrity while also expanding voter access. Not having access to voting, not being able to come out and vote, whether it be because you forgot to register on time or you have a hard time getting to the polls because you have a disability or you're overseas, any of those barriers we should remove, because absolutely every single person in the state who is eligible to vote should have the right and have the ability to be able to show up and express who they want to represent them. And so I'm proud of the work that we've done in Michigan to expand voter rights and voter access, and I hope to be able to continue to protect those rights moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, do you believe every Michigan citizen should have easy access to voting?
I do, and I agree with Ms. Weiss. I believe it's easier than ever to vote now. And anyone who wishes to vote and is not able to, either of the parties that they are part of can assist them in getting to the polls or direct them as to how, if they are not able to get to the polls, how they can vote otherwise. So yes, we have that obligation as a government to make it easy for people to vote.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey?
Absolutely. I believe it is very important for voting to be as easy as possible. 9 days of early in-person voting, I think that is awesome. I believe I'm an in-person voter. I'm not one that sends a ballot in. I just love the experience of knowing the history of women not being able to vote, taking that initiative to walk in and cast my ballot. I take pride in it, and I'm glad that we have 9 days of it, of early voting to walk in. So I do believe that it's very important for everyone to have accessibility in voting and keeping our voting rights. Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, you're first this time. What is your position on separation of church and state and organized prayer in classrooms?
Well, thank you. I don't believe there's anything in our state constitution or the national constitution that refers to separation of church and state. That's a misnomer. There's nothing required by the government for that. I believe that people should be able to pray wherever they wish, and that children should be able to pray in school without being penalized. They should be able to pray with a coach. They should be able to pray in a group. But I don't believe prayer should be taught by teachers. I believe that's the responsibility of parents. I don't believe prayer should be led by teachers, but students, of course, should have the right to pray. And if they have questions about that and they choose to ask a teacher, then of course that would be a different case.
Ms. Bailey, what is your position on the separation of church and state and organized prayer in classrooms?
Well, God is the head of my life. God is in everything that I do. To separate it from school, and I don't believe that we should push religion on children anywhere. I think that's something that should be done at home. I think that that is something for parents to do with their child, and that's my stand up on it.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss?
Absolutely. Religion is obviously a deeply personal and deeply important reflection of someone's identity. And I think it's really critical that we remember that our public schools, our public institutions should protect the beliefs of every single child and every single person that comes through those doors. And that is protected in our United States Constitution. And so I do not believe that we should allow for organized classroom-wide prayers in public schools, because that would be inappropriate for children who may not hold that same belief system. However, I do think that accommodations can be made for families. For example, if I taught in a school that had a large Muslim population and children who needed to pray at certain times of the day, they were allowed to do so. I think that allowing children and allowing kids to be able to have time to themselves for prayer is appropriate, but to mandate it, to organize it school-wide is unconstitutional and very inappropriate.
Thank you. Miss, who is next? Ms. Bailey, you get the next question. I'm sorry. Inflation has hit new and record highs. If elected as a state representative, what steps or actions would you take to address this issue that is affecting citizens all over?
Inflation is too high. I mean, I mentioned my taxes earlier, so I mean, it's just ridiculous. What I would do is I would go towards the taxes. You know, that is exactly what I do. Lower the taxes, definitely, because of inflation on everything is just ridiculous. I mean, I could go. That's just what I have. Yeah.
Mr. Sears, you're next.
I believe the federal government, it has the authority, really the control over inflation more so than the state. But both the federal government and state governments should dramatically reduce the spending of the governments if we want to reduce inflation. It's spending too much for too few goods that causes the price of goods to increase. So spending is a problem. It's a difficult one to control, but it means that certain services have to be reduced or cut back, which is a hard thing, but it must be done, or inflation will cause us to end up as other nations, as Argentina, as Venezuela has ended up, where the people are destitute and eating out of the trash because food costs so much.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss? Ms. Weiss?
Thank you. Absolutely. So inflation is obviously a huge issue on many people's minds, on everyone's mind, because we see the price when we go to the grocery store. We see what is on our receipts when we come out, and we know that our money doesn't go as far as it used to. And it's true that we can't control inflation as much at the state level, but what we can control is getting relief to people. And so there are different ways that you can do that. One is through progressive tax reform. One of the things that I support is passing a graduated income tax, which would lower taxes for the vast majority of Michiganders, but for those who are ultra wealthy, would make their taxes go up. And that would help increase revenue for the state to support education, which would also help making sure that people are successful in getting into high quality, high paying jobs moving forward. I also support expanding workers' rights and workers' protections so that people, their wages are going up along with inflation, as they should be, that people have the right to bargain for increases in their wages and their benefits, to make sure that as prices go up, so do their paychecks, so that they are able to make sure that they can make a living, that they can support their family, and that they can stay and thrive in their communities here in Michigan.
Thank you. Mr. Sears, what are your thoughts on the current dyslexia legislation?
Well, I'm behind the 8 ball here. I know nothing about the current dyslexia legislation. I suppose I can't comment.
Ms. Weiss?
Absolutely. So we actually have had a hearing. I also serve on the policy committee for education in the State House, and we recently had a hearing on the dyslexia legislation. I'm fully supportive of expanding this legislation. I mentioned I was a teacher in Detroit Public Schools. I taught high school, I taught middle school, and I saw time and time again children who were coming to me even as late as seniors in high school who had challenges reading. And I actually had to teach myself phonics to be able to help support some of my students to make sure that they were able to be successful. That is unacceptable. We need to make sure that we are doing more at an earlier age to address issues around dyslexia and around making sure that we are teaching the science of reading, that we are supporting learners, making sure that they are properly trained and we're using current and up-to-date techniques to teach reading so that all students can be successful, and so that if any students have experience or just simply struggles learning how to read, that they have the resources and the supports that they need to be successful from a very early age. And in addition to dyslexia, I also supported increased investments in early on education for 0 to 3 because a lot of those investments start before kids even get to the classroom.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey.
I support educating kids at a young age, especially 0 to 5. It's very important. They're sponges at their age. Again, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I enjoy the experience of educating. I also have a cousin who is dyslexic, so I know the importance of early education and providing the resources that's needed. So I support it.
Thank you. Last question. Why are you the best person for this position? And we're going to start with Ms. Weiss.
Thank you. I'm the best person for this position because I'm currently in it and currently doing it. I've been doing this job now, I'm running for my 3rd term, and experience is important in a position like this because a lot of what we do in Lansing is built on relationships. We build relationships with those that we work with to make sure that we are able to push critical legislation, that we're able to move difficult legislation across the aisle. I was able to move some incredibly difficult legislation across the finish line through my experience, particularly around legislation for restoring collective bargaining rights for teachers. That was incredibly difficult to do, and I was able to get the support because of the relationships that I've built. I also have worked to make sure that we are expanding, we are protecting and expanding our majority so that we can continue the work that we have been doing here with the Democratic trifecta beyond these first 2 years of the Democratic trifecta. And I'm committed to continuing that work. I'm committed to bringing more money and more resources back to the district. And I have a record to prove it and show for it. And I encourage voters to look that up and do their research.
Ms. Bailey.
Yes, I'm the candidate for the position because I am experienced, knowledgeable, and dedicated. I was born and raised within the boundaries of the new District 5. I understand the people within the boundaries of the new District 5. I've knocked doors, I lived there, I worked there, I played there, and these people within the District 5, I understand their issues. I understand how to be proactive and push these issues to the front of the conversation, which is the same issues that people in the rest of the state are facing, which are mental health. We all are experiencing this mental health crisis, which is eradication of gun violence. The whole state is experiencing the public health crisis. There's a 15-year-old her mother took her cell phone from her, and she jumped on her, mother jumped on her. The daughter jumped on the mother. But she went to detention. She went to a detention center. And instead of her getting the mental health treatment or the behavioral health treatment that she needed, she was in detention. And our jail, we need help, not handcuffs. Our jails are our new mental health facilities.
Thank you,
I'm
Ms.
Crystal
Bailey.
Bailey.
Mr. Sears.
I, Will Sears, am the best candidate for the district because my ideas and my approach is 180 degrees opposite those of the other candidates. And there are many Michiganders, many in the 5th District, who are unhappy with the results we've gotten, and they want to change. My idea of not throwing endless money, because money is not endless, at problems, but approaching them differently is a better solution. So I ask for the vote of those who want a change.
Thank you. That concludes our time for questions. Candidates now have 1 minute to make a closing statement, and we begin with Ms. Weiss.
Thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity. I appreciate everyone for being on this and for listening to everything that we've had to say. Again, I just want to reiterate that experience matters, and I am proud to be currently serving as a state rep, and I hope to be able to continue to build on the work that we have accomplished. I serve in leadership with our House Speaker, Joe Tate. I'm proud to be endorsed by him. I'm also proud to be endorsed by several major organizations and labor unions, including the UAW, AFL-CIO, MEA, AFT, SEIU, Planned Parenthood, several other organizations. And I encourage folks to look for on my website, Regina Weiss for staterep.org, for a full list of endorsements, for a full list of my priorities and my accomplishments, and also to reach out if you have questions, reach out if you have concerns, reach out if you have ideas. We have moved legislation that we've gotten from constituents, and I'm here to serve. I want to continue to serve, and I really hope to have the support of everyone watching on August 6th, or if you vote early as today, if you have your absentee ballot. Thank you.
Mr. Sears.
So if you want change, then you must do something differently. So those of us who wish to have more money in their pocket, if you wish to have less crime, if you wish those who commit crimes are properly penalized and those penalties are appropriate, if you wish to educate your children in the way that you wish, if you wish to have more out of life, then you need to make a change. So I'm that change. I'm Will Sears. I ask for your vote.
Ms. Bailey.
Thank you again, the League of Women Voters, for the opportunity to be at this forum today. I am Crystal Bailey, and I am running for District 5, an open seat in the new State House District 5. I've been endorsed by the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus, Mothering Justice Action Fund, Wayne County Kathy M. Garrett, the Detroit Councilwoman Angela Whitfield Calloway, Wayne County Commissioner Monique Baker McCormick, Oak Park School Board member Dawn Trusty, former Detroit School Councilman Warwick McAllister, and these are all people that are within the district that supports me and understands that I am dedicated, knowledgeable, and educated, ready to serve the members of District 5. I am rambunctious, I am ready, I am proactive, and serving is in my heart. Mental health got me involved in politics, and I am going to reallocate funds to address this mental health crisis that we're in. Thank you. I'm Crystal Bailey, and my website is wevotecrystalbailey.com.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the audience, the candidates, and Bloomfield Community TV for making this forum possible. For further nonpartisan information on these candidates, please visit Vote 411 for our voter guide. Rebroadcast of this forum will be on the League of Women Voters website and YouTube. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned businesses and citizens. Our membership is open to women and men over the age of 16. This presentation is copyrighted 2024 by the League of Women Voters and can only be shown in its entirety. All rights are reserved. Last of all, please remember to vote August 6th. Democracy is not and never has been a spectator sport. Thank you.